早く死んじゃえば を怪我したお前を恨むぞ人形許しはしないあいつが憎いなあいつが憎いなあいつを見るたび私は笑うの早く死なないか早く死なないか人形許しはしない早く死んじゃえば早く死んじゃえば
Hello guys, how's it going today? Today that was a small channel called I don't know how to pronounce it actually. It's FKUUKL. Post the link there. Like to find myself some cool artists and animators and musicians and just bullshit like that. Always like to find some weird stuff in the corner of the internet. So I'll go and post a link of that one. There was like that sort of thing. Both of those at the beginning were theirs. Yeah, they have some. They get silly. They have some fun stuff on there. Anytime I get like strange YouTube algorithm shit that kind of falls my way, where it's like some really just it just falls my way. Like that's the first thing I kind of want to do is like sort of share it on here. I guess is a good way to put it. Figure if anybody likes weird shit, it's probably a bunch of Zoids anyway. Zoids are interesting in the sense that they like themselves both they like themselves wholesome shit just as much as they like themselves weird as fuck grim shit. Which kind of makes sense in many ways. Honesty. Alright, let's get some background tunes and let's get the festivities started here. What do I got for background tunes? This will work actually. It's always nice and chill, at least by my standard. Lower the volume a bit though. There we go. All right, so guys, what did I really? Hero syndrome is cope. Oh yeah, that could be cope too for sure. A lot of things, but it's more of just like a silly title. But I think it's kind of funny that people use the word cope as some kind of like I don't know insult or whatever. It can be sometimes like. There are situations, but it's also mostly just tragic and part of just being a person. We all cope in a variety of different ways. Yeah, we just do, right? So, and some of those ways could be something like hero syndrome, right? Something of that nature. I've been accused of things like that. Doesn't really vibe with me, but people believe what they want. But what I wanted to focus on in a little bit today, and I'm trying to remember why it was sent as a flashlight. There we go. I'm trying to remember why exactly this had come up. I think it was. Oh yeah, because my birthday just came up, and my wife and kids, they were like. Obviously, even my older daughter wouldn't let her read it yet, but they had bought me like volumes of the premium Berserk edition thing. Active. Yeah, it was interesting to reread some of those because the only time I ever read Berserk was kind of online. I never had like a physical copy of it, so mostly because I wanted to buy the individual books volumes, but then like a few years ago, they released those premium, like faux leather bound ones. I'm like, I need those, but they're like $50 a piece, and there's 14 of them. So it was one of those things that was hard to get going on it, but it was, like I said, wife and it's nice enough to give me some of that action there for a birthday. And I was, kind of reading through it and. One of the things that, the earliest parts, especially Berserk, reminding me of is like the way a lot of people with a lot of trauma and a lot of just a lot of that sort of stuff in their lives, how they shroud themselves sometimes in misanthropy. And that's kind of what Guts is doing, using misanthropy as a sort of and cynicism, pessimism, misanthropy, to sort of cope with the amount of pain and suffering he couldn't sanely endure if he didn't use such methods to kind of cope and deal with it. And nobody's going to look at Guts and go, wow, that guy's just copium. Like, yeah, okay. If anybody deserves copium, it's that character. And in those first volumes, he's basically like, and he kind of keeps this up, but you know, stuff changes over time. Obviously, that's the whole point of a character arc. But it's just like kind of, and it becomes pretty quickly apparent. I don't think it's some hidden thing, or it was meant to be, even by Miura. But it becomes pretty quickly apparent that you know, his kind of cruelty and his kind of pessimistic nihilism and cynicism about the world and other people and life in general, and like, you know, the strong are the only ones that deserve to live. Anyone that's weak should be crushed underneath if they can't survive, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like what many Zoids do this kind of stuff. We use just like a lot of people out there will use, you know, like kind of, what do they call it, toxic optimism, or like sort of delusional levels of optimism, and to cope and deal with stuff. Or they'll just use all sorts of kind of more like, you know, oh, I just gotta breathe and really ground myself, and like, you know, when in actuality they're not like really dealing with the problem or really like confronting it or processing it. They're just like using methods of sort of optimistic or positive reinforced thinking to sort of attempt to dismantle the reality of some of the negative shit in their life. And I feel like schizoids are really good at doing kind of the opposite of that. They usually have two things they like to do, which is either ignore it completely and just be ambivalent. And sometimes it's not even a choice, right? It's not a choice. It's just kind of the way they set up, got wired for it. But I held my tongue and I just said, I love you. What do you mean that isn't fixing the problem? Shut up. And so like things like, you know, these sort of leaning towards cynicism, pessimism. If you don't know the difference, it's significant. People mix up stuff like nihilism, pessimism, cynicism like a lot. Pessimism usually refers to an expectation of negative outcomes, unavoidable negative outcomes that will ultimately just become worse and worse, and there will be a point of no return or something like that, depending on your level of pessimism. And then cynicism is more about the sort of very, very negative outlook about human behavior, people, institutions, human motivation. So if you're very cynical, you're generally going to assume that the reason someone does anything kind, or the reason anything good happens on the part of human beings doing it, is because of some underlining selfish and you know, sometimes hedonistic sort of motivation and things like that. So they're very different sometimes. Like I can be pretty cynical, or I can be very cynical about my perspectives, but then I try to temper it with like you know, more realistic, more balanced understandings about why behavior is motivated. But I would say early in life, in my 20s, cynicism was all the rage inside my head. For some of us, it's cynicism toward the behavior of people around you, specifically, whether it's family or people within your local proximity. Sometimes it's motivated by or perpetuated by things like fear and resentment, things like that. In my case, it was more of a cynicism that extended to like more institutional things and traditions and religion and sort of things like that, right? Sort of the view that each individual is just like this kind of self promoting animal that hides all their base instincts and desires under the guise of like something greater or something more grand, right? That's sort of like where cynicism would fall more than anything. And so oftentimes people use that as an excuse to be cruel to others, dog eat dog world type thinking, or being able to rationalize really kind of terrible behavior with the excuse that such behavior would be exhibited to you instead. If you've ever seen the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, it was interesting because he was like, well, the character in that movie was sort of a psychopath fueled by his cynical philosophical ideas. I think one of the main things he would say, and it's kind of part of the theme of his character, was it's either you or them. It's either you or them. Like everything in that guy's mind was it's either you or them. There was no in between. Everyone's after each other. It's either you or them. You take them out first before they ever have a chance. Kind of thinking. Obviously, most schizoids aren't usually leaning into that, but they'll kind of use that sort of thinking to not hope for things, right? To destroy hope. So hope hurts. They sometimes do it intentionally, sometimes they used to, and then eventually it becomes sort of a second nature. But yeah. A lot of the time, though, is really just a means of dealing with the amount of pain that was inflicted upon them growing up, or they might have forgotten about at this point as they got older, or that they're still dealing with. And, reading those early volumes of Berserk kind of reminded me of some of those moments where, you might say something like, friends are worthless, the idea of friendship is a lie, people are just after each other for, hierarchical things and status, and people are just trying to, influence and push power on each other, and that's why I don't want to be a part of human society. That's why I don't want to do these things called friends or relationships. Even though, most schizoids know that somewhere inside them, even if they don't quite feel it all the time, maybe they only feel it sometimes, they know that in some ways, especially as they get older. I didn't feel as much when I was younger, so once a lot of the misanthropy and a lot of the sort of anger or resentment sort of dies down a little bit, at least in my case, you start really coming to terms with the fact that you're just incredibly existentially lonely. It might even require a sense of physical contact, right? Even though the human being is definitely designed for it, but it's more of I can't even find evidence, or I have to scour the earth to find evidence that my experience is one that other human beings also partake in. I'm 40 now, so my first 20 years of life didn't have access to the internet and things like that, right? For you out there that are in your 20s now, you can discover or find some reasonably safe hope out there, even if you don't delve into it deeply, but at least there's something you can find as far as being able to find other human beings that have similar experience. I'm not saying you're going to find happiness. just scouring the internet, but you'll find other people that you can relate to, or other people that experience what you experience to some degree. That sort of existential isolation, that struggle with wanting to remain alone, and also knowing that you want to feel like you're, in some regard, a part of your species. They struggle with the whole, do I really want to be a part of it? I don't want to be, but am I actually? Thoughts like that. A lot of thinking like that. And the easiest way to cope with that is, it's just having completely cynical views about your fellow man, and throwing in a tinge of existential pessimism in there, and you might be depressed, you might feel empty, but you don't feel as much pain as you would. Because I think for a lot of schizoids, the alternative to the void, to the empty, the feeling of emptiness, and just the feeling of just numbness, the only alternative I believe that most schizoids can see is in front of them would be like agony, right? They've had very few experiences with anything that would resemble joy, fulfillment, for a variety of reasons I'm not going to reiterate. Okay. So one thing I find funny sometimes is, like, I'll see like Schizoids and other people that are post about like, oh, I can't stand all these like smiling, happy people, you know, these families hugging, loving each other, and it's like, don't they know it's all like pointless and blah blah blah? Or they might think like, maybe they might not have like a jealousy toward it, it's more about like, can't they see how worthless it really is? Because, you know, it feels that worthless to me. Why can't they see it for how I see it? And such. Like, just that alone is like, it's I just found it, I find it amusing that for all the you know, logical, rational, intellectualized thinking many schizoids do, they're so emotionally driven to remain under that pile of ambivalence. Ambivalence is easier. Ambivalence is less scary. It's less risks. It's not great, but it's not horrible. It can become horrible. And when it does become horrible, what then? What would be your choices then? I think that's part of why I also hear a lot of Zoids say stuff like, oh, I don't even want to live to be like 50 years old. I want to live to be old. I think something inside of them knows that eventually that numbness will dissipate. That emptiness will be filled with something. And it's not going to be more emptiness. It's going to be something much darker, much more painful. Doesn't have to be, though. That's why I hang out around here, because it doesn't have to be. I'm learning that personally, right? I've been in the last few years able to fill some of those empty holes with not agony, not the dark matter that is so much of my growing up. My universe is filling with objects, connections, albeit very slowly. I'm very methodical about it. Intentional, careful. I'm sure you guys know about that. But yeah, I guess part of what I would like for anybody listening here today, that already has done it. Some of you might already definitely have done this, but for those listening today, on a Zavad or live or whatever, it's not that many of you today, to be honest. Like a good 10, yeah, just about. To, if you haven't, reflect on how much of that stuff you tell yourself about how much various things that other people seem to want or need, such as friendship or connection, to think about how much of that is a conscious effort, how much of it isn't. And the parts that are some kind of conscious effort, are they really coming from a place of being someone that just, you know, wants to come from a place of objectivity and you know, not the weakness of emotionality or the loss of autonomy through emotional constraint. Like, I think we do that too much. Way too much. And I can't even blame you at all. It's not a judgment. It's just kind of a reality that can't keep going that way, you know? It's not sustainable. Or disagree active. But whatever. That's just my opinion. I've seen it stop working for a good amount of people, not just myself. I know there's zoids out there that think, oh, well, once it stops working, I'm going to check out. So many options. Just not all of them apparent. That's nobody's fault. Sure, active. Those last forever. It's something frustrating for me in some weird ways, being like someone that has been in the last few years able to like do these things, right, that I wish other people that endured a lot of what I have could do themselves. And then knowing it's doable and not having the words to explain to them. Explain that it is without it seeming like I'm sort of like trying to sell snake oil. I struggle with that a lot. How do I speak these words? How do you give hope to the hopeless when you yourself was someone hopeless? It's just weird. Yeah, I don't know where to take it from there. Just a lot. It's very overwhelming. See who's on here. Hey, Saintus. Hello, Shadow.
Morning.
It sucks when you don't have the language for certain things.
It's a struggle because it's hard to tell what someone would want to hear. Like, if you were to talk to me at my lowest point,
Continue. Oh, did you stop talking or did you get...
oh, I pressed the button on my mic somehow.
Yeah, it's fine. You were
Where did I
saying...
leave
Oh,
off?
you said that if someone were to talk to you at your lowest point.
Someone were to talk to me at my lowest point. Like, if I were to come by your stream at my lowest point, then nothing you could say could convince me of anything.
Yeah.
There's no fault of your own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, same.
So,
Yeah.
I don't think it's how do I give hope to the hopeless. It's more of a question of how do I give hope for anyone that's willing to listen.
Yeah. Like, the only reason I feel comfortable, like, trying to dish out hope is because, like, I've made it work for me. So, and that's after...
And the opposite reason is why people wouldn't listen to you, I wager. That's what it was for me.
The opposite reason?
Like, you say you're okay with trying to give out hope because you understand that it's worked for you.
Yeah.
So it's not you selling snake oil, it's some tangible benefit that you've realized. But to someone else, like for example me at my lowest point, I would have countered, but nothing I've done with all this evidence to back it up has worked. So in the same method that you believe in hope, I would believe against hope.
Yeah, that's another issue too, is that like how do you can't really convince someone to be more tenacious. It's one of those lessons you kind of have to just learn yourself. You either learn it or you don't.
I heard from a person today, not today, I think yesterday, that kind of evidence-based or emphasis on evidence isn't necessarily, or like the average severity of a person that does this sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's usually not as severe as those that are neurodivergent. So I guess I can put into words like people that are autistic place this massive emphasis on evidence-based objectivism. I think you could say the same thing for people that are schizo-spectrum. I don't know, you would be the one to
Nah,
Tell me on that one.
it wouldn't be like always. They would temper their like that's I like that stuff because I oftentimes temper my proclivities toward like um referential or magical thinking or whatever. Like it feels right, it sounds right, it must be right.
I
Um
would say the only reason why I would argue that I think any form of neurodivergence would put this much emphasis is because there's a lack of anything else. In
no,
lieu
yeah,
of
for
any
sure.
other evidence, that's why you put so much emphasis on this subjectivism. So it's intuitive for people that are autistic, but I think it still comes natural
You
or
think
not
so? Well,
naturally.
not naturally, no. I mean, if
Yeah, but
anything, the
it's
ones that don't
still
do it like end up coming apart pretty quickly. All right, hold on, my little one. No, I mean, I the only reason I disagree is because like it's sort of I don't know, like I feel
and
like
this is going towards more of because they have a lack of any other supporting evidence.
Mhm.
This is the only thing they have to fall back on,
yeah, but
kind of deal. So it's
no,
not intuitive, but it's still in lieu of
no,
anything
I
else.
don't. The only reason I disagree is because I would think that for people that are more on the schizo side of things, it would be easier to. They do have uh, what is available, and that would be like, you know, in some cases, like the metaphysical, the spiritual, the you know, the over convoluted philosophical, the world of the absurd, the world of things like that. I think
Do
those
you
are
do
the
you not
easiest
think
codes,
do you not think that
or not
is
codes, but the easiest, most intuitive parts of life that
the,
one can latch onto.
the things that you just described? Do you not think that's the same thing as, for example, someone who's autistic that's objective,
Yeah,
but
that's what
just
I'm
from
saying.
a schizo perspective?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the same. That's why
So it's still an
I like.
emphasis on this evidence-based learning, no matter if I describe it to facts or I ascribe, oh, the reason behind these evidence is because of these other abstract beliefs. It's still the thing
Yeah.
that I'm trying to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I brought that up was because I think it's important to understand that because there's such an emphasis on evidence-based learning, that the degree in which you accrue the evidence needs to be completely 100% foolproof before you make these conclusions.
But it
Because
never is.
in my,
That's foolish to believe they are.
exactly, right? But in my
Yeah.
lowest point, I would have argued that it completely was, because look at it, right?
Yeah.
Because like, how can I be wrong? And lo and behold, a couple of years later, oh, this is how I'm wrong, because I can explain to you
Yeah.
the flaws in my logic, despite it seemingly being obvious before I understand the nuances of
Yeah.
why that technically isn't correct.
One thing that popped in my head right now is I feel like, and this is my experience, but I feel like somebody that's kind of a more schizoid thinker, they have to sort of, in order to become better at navigating and dealing with the world, they sort of have to start delving into the parts of the world that aren't intuitive to them, like the more concrete shit about the world, or to be able to kind of collapse their thinking into smaller parts of things that are like directly around them, directly in front of them. And it's kind of funny because like I feel like a lot of autistic people that are trying to like make their way in the world, they have to go in the other direction. They have to like expand into the realm of emotional and abstract thought and the acceptance of the irrational. Um, like it's like you have to go in another direction to be able to navigate the world we inhabit, since most of the time it's floating somewhere in the center.
I didn't want to emphasize the autistic side of things. I just don't intuitively understand how to use the language that would make sense for schizo-spectrum. But I still would assert that the way I'm describing it can still, like, the thing I'm trying to describe is still the same thing a schizo-spectrum would understand if I had the diction to describe it in the way that.
No, yeah, I get that. It's fine.
So
trust me, like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like. It's the same thing with like how, like when I hear. Okay, like here's a fun example. Like when I talk to like Era, my buddy Era, he's always actively trying to expand his sort of abstract thought stuff. He's put a lot of effort and practice into it. But like we were having a conversation about how oftentimes they even have some difficulties with detaching themselves from what they would think are obvious conclusions or obvious conclusions people would make in regards to how to approach a problem or a thing. And it's sort of like I'll bring up something. I'll bring up I'll be like, this is this thing happened, and this is how people will likely behave in regards to it. And sometimes they may respond with, yeah, but once they figure this out, then that won't happen. And I have to be like, but their motivations are different. They don't want to figure it out. There's no reason to figure it out. It's not what they want. They don't want what I want, and they don't want what you want. They want what they want. And what they want is not going to make any sense. And so, like, I sometimes have to kind of explain that, because they're like, yeah, but like, in their mind, they're just like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would that be the goal? Why would be it's like, it's not efficient. It's not reducing suffering. It's not doing any of that. It's so individualized. And I'm like, yeah, it is. In like this weird sort of like unproductive way. It's unproductive. Why would they do the unproductive thing when the evidence of what would be more productive is in front of them? And I have to kind of tell them why that's the case. And then, yeah, after like, a quick explanation, they'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. And, I fall into some of these traps too. So we always catch each other when we fall into these little traps of like, oh, but why? And I think I've done it too on my end of things, which is like, getting worked up about, why does humanity do this? And why is it that they have a trend toward this? Isn't it obvious that this will ultimately like accomplish nothing, and destroy us 1,000 years from now? Shit like that. And it's like, and it's like, I have to be reminded, no, people live in the present. People don't live 100 years from now. People don't live. You're lucky if people live in the thoughts of their children. Like, that's if you're lucky. And well, so many people live within just their individual present self without any regard for consequence of any kind. Or any regard for like ideas like efficiency and productivity and pragmatism and things like that. It just, it's oftentimes under the guise of pragmatism, some base, not base, but some immediate gratification that's being sought after. That for me is like, oh god, it's so fucking hard for me to wrap my mind around, like, being so motivated by immediate gratification. Because what's really funny to me is that even things that, like, somebody would work a lifetime toward, because of the way I think about stuff, it still feels too close to immediate gratification for me. It's like, oh, you want to accomplish this thing within your lifetime? Well, good luck. You know, I think that's why a lot of people make a lot of mistakes about their goals. Like, for example, like, I imagine a guy, and I don't know, it might be the case, but I imagine a lot of, like, these kind of moguls, these, like, tech billionaires and stuff, millionaires or whatever, like, they have this, like, futurism related vision, right? But it's like really, it's so often intrinsically tied to them believing that it can happen within their lifetimes and wanting that desire. They want to see the evidence within their lifetime that it'll happen, it'll work, it is working, it will work. I'm the one that did it, I'm the one that made it work. And I'll keep talking, it's just got somebody coming in. And to me, that's just like, I don't understand that kind of thinking. I don't expect that from anything I do. I see everything as like a one more step toward a thing that is beyond me. That I will not be here, at least in any physical, material way, to see it play out. And I'll be motivated by decision making based around stuff like that. It's really weird. Like, I can't imagine that if for some reason, like, I don't know, let's just say I keep at this shit with the channel and the server and everything. I keep at it, and, you know, I'm in my 70s, dying of cancer, some shit. And there've only been, like, small steps, small things that have occurred. But it's, you know, maybe it's helped a few people that do listen on some individual level, and maybe they're perpetuating something on their end that will ultimately have a more local domino effect. And, you know, I'm on my deathbed, and that's all I've been able to do, even in that time frame. That's satisfactory. I wouldn't have any, like, big regrets. The only regrets I would have would be if somehow my lack of energy, my lack of tenacity, wasn't like, my heart wasn't in it as much as it could have been for the brief moment that I was a part of that thing or that effort. That would be my concern as far as that kind of stuff goes.
I think that makes a lot of sense, understanding more about schizo-spectrum now than I have before, because that as well, like, I understand the concept of a community coming together and I'm doing my part, and then eventually it will work out as, like, cogs in a machine, but that's not necessarily as intuitive to me for the gratification factor, because I don't consider myself innately a part of anything. I am so individualized, and I'm so focused on specific pieces that the whole machine doesn't really make sense, despite I understand this singular thing that's happening is going in the right direction. Does that make sense?
Well, I don't know if it's going. I'm not assuming it's going in the right or wrong direction. I'm just
Well,
doing
I meant like
yeah.
I can, because I can have so much emphasis on the singular moment to say
Yeah.
the singular moment is good. But I can't like
Yeah.
conceptualize the entire
I'm
machine
never
or
satisfied with the singular moment. Yeah, like almost ever. I'm satisfied with it when it comes to like my kids and my wife, and I have to keep those things there. Like I have to keep them in the present. Um, though there are a lot of things that I do in regards to my family that are for, in my mind, are for like my kids' kids and my grandkids and my grandkids' kids, that I hope I can like instill some small thing in my own children and my parenting to perpetuate something that might still survive a few generations, a few branches, if there are any to be had. Might affect children of other families because my children, you know, introduced some unknowingly concept of um, ethics and moral.
so what I'm trying to put forward
Yeah.
here is that there are many people that don't do the thing you're talking about, but those specific people aren't uh aren't everybody. There are people like me who don't see it, and I understand you know this, but I'm just articulating regardless.
Mm.
There are people like me that, despite not obviously seeming to be on the grander scale and are more focused on the present moment, or even intensely focused on the singular moment,
Mm-hmm.
that still want to see the grander design,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just doing it the way that they know how to.
No, I get that. Like, for
Yeah,
example,
right. So I'm just explaining for people in chat
yeah,
that
no, like here, I'll say it another way. Basically, I one thing I have learned significantly is, I appreciate the efforts of people that are coming from entirely different, sort of, perspectives as to the approach of why they're doing what they're doing, as long as it ultimately, um, works in congruency with the effort itself. Like, um, I I don't need other people to do or say or do or help with anything that I'm doing like this, for the same reasons that I am. Like that's not a requirement. It's never been a
yeah.
requirement. Um,
But some of the things you were saying earlier, I was combating the ideas that I would have probably agreed with at my lowest point as well. Of
mm,
look at all these people doing these things that are
yeah,
so obviously just that like
destructive.
disgust me or stress me out or are so blatantly wrong. There's I think there's too much of an emphasis on negativity that I would have focused on, that I was blinded to all the people that were also doing similar things, but in good faith and working towards the same sort of goals or ideas, beliefs that I believed in myself.
Hmm.
But uh, I was too ignorant to realize it, and I would lump them all into the same category because I couldn't differentiate.
Yeah, like for example, someone like you would have like annoyed me in my 20s. I think.
I annoyed myself in my 20s.
No, but like, but I'm saying like even you right, well, you are in your 20s right now. Well, yeah, that's why you
Yeah,
annoy
well,
yourself
my
right now.
early
That's what you're saying.
20s.
No, but I'm
like
saying even right now,
20s.
the shadow that you are now would annoy me in my 20s, because I wouldn't understand. Like my mind, I think when I was like in my early 20s was more like I would get really schizo about stuff. Like it's nothing like I am now. Like I would just start going like, but what does that matter? Who gives a shit about what you need right now? Look at this. Look at these
Yeah,
things.
my
Like
own
why?
way, I would agree with you.
Why? Like
And
why would
different
this
things.
like this? Like why should I care about this and that when all this is happening and nobody's cares, nobody's listening, and everything's going to shit? And like, and thoughts like that, and then just like, like, why isn't everyone focusing on like these conundrums that are yet to be solved, that constantly perpetuate themselves throughout history? And why aren't we working toward, removing aspects that we consider to be a part of our human nature that ultimately consume us? And like, that would have been like, who gives a shit about your needs right now? Who gives a fuck about that? What's wrong with you? Like, that's kind of like the way I would approach that kind of stuff. Like, I wouldn't understand like the value that those differing sort of perspectives about life and existence can work together. Like
the
irony
of when I was younger was I was so focused on these like particular negative aspects that maybe just hate everything about it, because there's the what's the word I'm looking for? This singular aspect was so egregious that it made me want to just throw out everything related to it, because it's so bad. How can you allow anything because of this one bad aspect?
Yeah, but it was you were honing in on a piece of minutia or detail that was working its way out, right, from like the bottom up.
It's like this particular aspect. I would be this sucks because of this singular thing is just so egregious,
and it's making it's tainting everything else.
Everything about it is corrupted from the ground up, right?
Yeah.
But I was so blinded by my ignorance that I was falling prey to the same bias that I was applying to other people, because I was focusing on only the things that I could see, which was the irony of it. There are a lot of people that I don't see, or now a lot of people that I do see currently as my horizons have expanded, that are doing things in ways that I would have agreed with, that would have made it easier. But because I was so focused on these particular aspects that I kept going down and further into a rabbit hole of this thing is so bad, which makes this thing even worse the more I look at it, which makes it even worse, which makes it even worse.
Yeah. Baby meat bathwater.
I was doing the very thing that I was so angry at. I was being so egregious the more I was emphasizing it, that I was tainting my entire vision. That's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah, you end up doing the very thing that you despise but because it's coming from a perspective that makes sense to you, you don't realize you're doing the same thing they are.
You become what you hate and all that.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
So for the pessimism and cynicism was definitely a cope for a long time for me. Not necessarily a cope, but a self-soothing kind of thing for a long time, because like if I were to even understand that there are other people doing things that would be of my belief, my vision was so tainted that I feel like it would have been lies, and that would have been taken away from me. So there was a lot of bias to not believe in the hope because of fear, I would say. So despite claiming all of these things as factual evidence that I could point to and I could, recollect and show, like, this is obviously why these things are like this, a lot of that was, how do I put it? The fervor to which I would articulate that was based in a type of fear and an emotional irrationality. So the very fact that I was trying to do that and it was based in that rationality made my evidence flawed without pretty much realizing it.
I think there is one important lesson that I think a lot of people that are schizoid would have trouble, and this is just my opinion again, but have trouble swallowing, is that they're individually just as irrational as all the humans they can't connect with.
I don't know about that. It might depend on how you define irrational.
I know,
So
but I'm saying
logical,
I'm talking about it's all still emotionally dictated.
From an abstract degree, we're still subject to the same things as the other people.
It's all
we can't
feelings,
connect
it's all
with.
emotion, it's all faith, it's all decision making based on pre-assumption and assumptions. It's just the assumptions are layered either bottom up or top bottom. But it's all very much emotion. There's various degrees of what some people might term magical thinking. It's always there. And I think that believing otherwise is cope. And I don't blame them. Because it hurts a lot not to do it.
Even admitting that it's cope can awaken a lot of past experiences where when you would conventionally quote unquote swallow your pride, the people you would swallow your pride to in an attempt to establish connection and good faith with would take a knife and twist that against you and hurt you when you're trying to be vulnerable. So it's not even, there's a lot of
it's not arrogance. It's not.
No, it's not arrogance. It's even the conventional method of trying to establish that boundary is traumatic. Not let alone what makes you make that mistake in the first place.
I think for the schizoid, it's coming from not a place of arrogance or narcissism. It's coming from a place of despair. That's my belief. If they are making that mistake, they're making it from a place of despair.
As if letting go of the cope wasn't hard enough. Letting go of the cope is inviting pain in and of itself.
It's inviting the despair that you're
not just inviting the despair that comes from not coping, but the very act of letting go of the cope invites more pain and despair that wasn't originally there.
Yeah, because you have nothing else to fill it with, and that's the goal. The goal is to fill it with things that aren't despair and to realize that they are there. They exist. But when you don't have a point of reference, and you've lived most of your life not having one that works, then all you could see in the foreseeable future is more of that. That's why a lot of the times I'll hear like there'll be like zoids that like are making certain type of progress with their emotional connectivity and internal and working with the external, and then like they'll have those moments where they start saying stuff like, I wish I could go back, I want to go back to being like more numb, I don't want to be not numb, I want to go back, I don't like this. And so they'll retreat back into it, or if they went too far, they no longer can retreat back into it.
To be honest, I'm guilty of that myself, because if I could, I would. I've said many, many times to my own self.
Yeah, and I disagree. If I could, I would never.
Well, now I would say that as well, right? But I think what's made me so adamant about chasing these kinds of healing started from a standpoint of, well, I can't go back to using my old coping, because if I could do that at the very start, I would have. But the fact that I was denied it meant, okay, well, now I gotta figure something else out. So now I gotta.
I think the only reason you didn't even when you had moments when you could, is because you're just a stubborn son of a bitch too. So
Yeah.
it's like that whole like that feeling of like, oh, you can't beat this challenge. Oh yeah, is that right? I can't. Let's see about that.
If I were to react to that in the typical manner that I would just be proving your point. So I'm not gonna do that.
Oh yeah. I think I'm gonna react this way.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you
react
think
this
I-
way.
you think I-
But then I'm gonna
think I
react
act like
about the
that?
reenact.
Fuck you.
I'm gonna react about the reacting, and react about that reacting. And never stop at any singular reaction, because then I'll never be caught. It's funny. Active research. What are you on about? Smile and say toodles? Say morning like a flirty girl and wave your hands while wiggling your fingers? What the fuck is he on about?
They're not even talking about me anymore. They're talking about some other people.
Well, they said shadow, smile, and say toodles, and then they said say morning.
Yeah, I know, right? But
I don't know what they're talking about.
I was talking about.
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe
I
it's
think
just being absurd. Maybe it's just being silly. But what does that have to do with it? I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to say with that. Like, what is
I have no
smiling
idea.
and saying toodles or?
The only thing I can think of is they've done this before. They've disliked a lot of the things when I bring up autism.
Yeah.
Because I think it's projecting other times they've seen autism and it's been negative on their life. But I did appreciate them, the one comment. Imagine an autist talking about their autism, right? Because I don't appreciate it because like I like them. I don't care, right? But I appreciate it because it reminds me to emphasize like the point I was trying to make earlier of I didn't want this to be only a talk about autism.
Yeah.
So I still think it's useful now and then.
I bet I think you've told me before that you yourself get annoyed with how much you think and talk about it.
Yeah. Because I want to talk about everything. Like, I want to talk about the root issue. I don't want to focus on the stupid details, which I do a lot.
But you can't help but do.
But I can't help it because that's just kind of the person I am.
Yeah, it comes with the territory. Meanwhile, I'm having constant trouble trying to keep track of the details. Because they're just so not fun. Oh no! I broke my little block. Are you serious? Oh jeez. I almost broke it. Got scared for a second. I like this little block. It only cost me $1. One little block. Alright, I think I'm good. I'm tired. One thing it's been fucking with me, man. Like, okay, real quick, just more like immediate stuff. Man, like, okay, so I've been taking this Keebril ADHD medication for like a few days now, and I stopped taking the other one, the Strattera, for like 2 weeks now. So good thing about that is, sorry if it's TMI, but the libido is back to normal now that I'm out of the Strattera.
You and sex talk. Jesus Christ.
What is that? I'm just telling you my symptoms and how they're changing. Fuck you. Anyway, so that part's cool. So now it doesn't feel like I'm getting punched in the prostate anytime I try to have fun with wifey or solo, and so that's good. But then now I'm dealing with nausea. Like I get like nasty nausea when I take the Keebril and then the Fluoxetine in the morning, and then I usually take my Wellbutrin like 4 hours later. I talked to my psych today. They told me to switch it. They're like, take Wellbutrin and your Keebril in the morning, and then take your Prozac later. And I'm like, all right, I'll give that a shot. But it's still better, I guess. It's just like a few hours of nausea, but I get my shit done. But one thing that's been pissing me off is I use a CPAP, and the whole point of the CPAP is because I thought the reason I was always tired and sleepy, and it seemed that way when I started using it, it was helping a lot. The reason I was always tired and sleepy is because I was just like, I was fat and not breathing enough in my sleep. And plus I have a deviated septum, right? So I started using the machine. The machine keeps track of like your stats, right? Like how many times you're like, you know, end up gasping for air or something. How many times you stop breathing. And because it keeps track of all that stuff, according to my stats, and it even has like a little bar, like a bar graph and everything. Like I'm doing a lot less of that than I ever have, right? And I've been actually going to the gym, and I've been kind of losing some weight, and like all this stuff, right? And now I'm just like, why the fuck do I still feel fucking tired and shitty? I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like less anxious than ever in my life. I'm just, it's my normal level of dysthymic sort of depression is pretty ground level. I'm not having too many major wanting to backflip episodes. Like I said, exercise, getting better sleep, trying to reduce my calorie intake, and I still feel so fucking tired most of the day. It's so fucking annoying. You know what worries me is that I've been trying for the ADHD.
Is that like an ADHD thing where you're not getting, like, you have dopamine dysregulation?
It has to be some kind of dopamine dysregulation or some shit. Because like it's kind of funny because like I have, you know, the inattentive type of ADD. I don't have the hyper part. Like and the inattentive part makes it so that like I get pretty bored. I get bored pretty fast, and I get like even if my brain gets bored, like it's not even me. Like I might think I want to do this, but my brain goes to sleep. And so I'm worried because I was trying to avoid it. I'm worried that the only kind of ADHD medication that's going to help me with these symptoms is going to be stimulants.
Well, not even like caffeine or any
No,
of the normal,
caffeine
like,
makes me
sugar
feel
or
nauseous
that.
and gross. Sugar, nothing.
Yeah.
Sugar.
So
I don't even have sugar.
Have you ever tried any kind of stimulants before?
No,
Like, you
I
think they
mean,
might do
besides
the same?
caffeine, but caffeine's a whole different animal. It works different parts, but no, the stimulants would like basically like just wire me up more. And yeah, it might sadly be exactly what I need, but I kind of wanted to avoid like opioids type stimulants.
Maybe just a little bit at the start would like restart some wires in your brain that you can like work from there.
I'm on my second non-stimulant ADHD medication, and Wellbutrin on top of that's supposed to help with the depression, and it's supposed to help to some degree with ADHD stuff. So I'm taking the Wellbutrin and the Puberil, and I'm taking non-stimulants to try to regulate this constant feeling of just sleepiness and lethargy and just like I don't know. I get like 8 hours of sleep. I wake up, I feel okay for the first 2 hours, and then like I start working, and the work, it's not even like the work's hard. This is like the most okay work I've ever done in my entire life, and I'm just like I can't keep my eyes awake. I'm having like moments where just like like what the fuck, man. So
like,
yeah,
I've heard in children taking these kinds of medication for ADHD that because of the elasticity in their brains, it like starts rewires the connections that would have the dopamine or dysregulation, and that once they can have those channels opened up once, they can like, oh, if that's how my brain's supposed to work, then they can like start like working out, quote unquote.
yeah, maybe I started too
now that
late
I
in the game for
understand.
me, huh? Like with the meds. That's
Well,
why.
I mean, maybe you can still do it now, right?
But it
You
might
were pretty-
require stronger shit.
Or maybe just a prolonged period of time because you don't have age on your side, but you do have the open-mindedness, right?
Yeah. Like I'm okay with dealing with side effects. I don't get
Like you definitely still have an elastic brain because of your ability to understand different cognitions. So you still have that on your side.
Neuroplasticity for the one. I just gotta that's why I'm gonna use this Keebril stuff. It's supposed to, I looked it up, it's supposed to start really showing its positive effects after about 6 to 8 weeks of taking it. So if I'm on it for like, 4 or 5 months and I'm not seeing results, I might have to tell my psych it's time for Adderall. It's time for the the opioid stimulants that they give ADHD people. The reason I was avoiding those is because I don't know, like, I don't know why I was avoiding them. Because there's so many horror stories about that kind of stuff. And then there's people that take shit like Adderall, like, that don't even need it. Like, they're just taking it. So I'm thinking, oh, well, the reason people get addicted to things like Adderall is because it makes them feel, like, really good and energized, right? But maybe someone like me taking it will just make me feel, like, alive. So instead of just, I won't feel like, woo! I'll just feel like,
Thanks. Who are you if you're not depressed?
oh.
You're just the tiniest part of who you
No,
are.
I'm okay with being depressed. I'm just don't want to be tired. Like, sadness I can manage. Tired is what I hate. I hate that I'm always tired.
You miss my thing. What if you stop being depressed?
That's never gonna happen.
But what if you would?
Then I'll find out what that's like. But
what if you like it?
I would use that extra energy and optimism to help other people.
No, you'll stop caring about.
No, that's not how that works.
Because
that is not how that fucking works at all. Because that's not the reason I'm doing it.
Completely change who you are.
You're stupid. That's so stupid.
But you'll like it.
That's so stupid. It's unbelievable. So stupid. That's not how medication like this works at all. But, that's like the beliefs that people have about medication that scares the shit out of them, and you're perpetuating them. So good job.
What? The thing that scares the shit out of them is that the light.
No, this thing that scares the shit out of them is that, like, you can take some SSRI or something and it's just gonna make you like a different person. You're just gonna lose who you were before. Like, oh, you're just gonna be a different person. Like, it's just like, come on. I've never had that experience, and I've used a couple of different things, and the only thing I've experienced is a gradual onset of less horrible shit distracting me from being able to do the things that I feel like doing in the ways that I feel like doing them. That's all that it's done for me. So no, it's not going to overhaul your personality. It's fucking crazy. It's not like a fucking NDE. You're gonna wake up and feel like, oh, life is amazing. Oh, I'm a different person. I'm blind to the suffering of others now because I feel so good. Like,
I don't know. Like, maybe taking SSRI or Adderall would like be like giving me an evolution stone so I can evolve like I'm a Pokemon.
Yeah,
I avoided psychedelics because I thought it might change my beliefs.
Yeah, psychedelics are a whole different story, but I think psychedelics can just help you expand upon things that you already had inside of you or had potential to break open. But I don't think it makes you like a entirely different fucking person. It's just a complete 180 unless you do brain damage to yourself or some shit like that. Or you fucking, I don't know. Like, life is absurd with or without medication. Hell yeah, Arthur Miller for the win. Life is absurd with or without medication. It's just, I feel like medication allows me to deal with the absurdity a lot better. I'd rather be dealing with the absurd and laughing, or just coughing, than dealing with the absurd and despair and despondence and in a pile of just fucking unmoving sludge. Yeah, I think I'll take the latter if I gotta deal with the absurdity anyway. Huh?
You're just an absurd person.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes it work for me, I guess. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for being here. By the way, the music I was just playing right now is a channel called Nava 159. They got some pretty chill little playlists on here. I'll post those in the YouTube chat. Or it might raise your motivation just enough to finally act on the impulse to make it final. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know, right? It's a fucking dice roll, homies. Definitely a fucking dice roll. But anyway, thanks a lot. And if you want to support the stream, if you want to support my work, please do so on Patreon. I appreciate it quite a bit. You're off the SSRIs? Hey man, if it's something you were able to get off of and things are still rolling pretty good, and good. I mean, the kind of the goal for a lot of this stuff is to eventually get off of it, right? Once you give enough once you give enough years or time for your brain to like take advantage of that neuroplasticity and change some shit around, yeah, that's kind of the goal, and then wean off of it and just be like, oh look, I still get to keep some of the effects of what I got from taking the medication now that I'm not on it, because I took it for, you know, so long. So or you could just take lower dosages till you don't need it anymore, and then you feel generally the same as you did when you were on it. So yeah, I'm relieved I have dreams at night again. Good for you, Arthur. What's really funny is that, like, yeah, just really quickly, I think about like my 20s and when I had like I had been diagnosed with a panic disorder, and I was like having panic attacks every 2-3 days, like for a decade. And like I think back on that time, I think back on how I'm like, over the years I've been forgetting what that even felt like. I understand it, I could tap into it to a certain degree, but like it just seems like almost like a previous life. It seems so distant, and it was only like a little over a decade ago that was like the everyday reality that I experienced, and I thought was going to be like that forever. And now I think back on it, like, you know, think about 12 years ago, and I just go, I don't even think I could get that. I don't even think I could give myself, like, I would have to do something to trigger my agoraphobia, like really fucking actively. I used to just have panic attacks just sitting there thinking. And so, like, I don't think I could trigger a panic attack if I wanted to anymore. Like, just sitting there thinking. I don't think I could. I could definitely still trigger a bout of very bad depression, but definitely cannot trigger panic attacks anymore. When before I had no control over whether I was going to have one or not. Wild shit. Wild shit. And I have medication to thank for allowing me the skill set that I now possess to deal with something like that a lot easier. All right, thanks a lot, guys, as usual. If you want to join the server, remember, go to the Zoid Void. We have a new application process. It's pretty great. We are asking way better questions, way less ICD, DSM specific questions, because honestly, those don't really tell us anything about anyone trying to join the server. And you know, the goal is to make it as like useful as possible for the people that are going there that need that kind of relatability and support, or just want to lurk and see something that they can relate to. And also to avoid people that don't need that kind of stuff from hurting themselves further, because we will not be able to meet those types of needs on this, or support on the server. I, you know, try to keep going here. So check out the Zoid Void and apply if you really think you're dealing with Zoid stuff. All right. I don't remember if I said it, but yeah, when days are, always remember happy day.